Of course, we want to sell it when the price is high. Di ba, Mr. President?
But
Okay,
it
now,
would have been wiser if we had held on to it kasi pataas ng pataas,
Correct.
hindi
yeah,
po.
but
Pataas
that's
ng
also
pataas.
a risk you take, di ba? Parang,
Kumusta ho kayo lahat dyan mga kababayan dito sa video na to? Ang pinakahihintay ng ating mga kababayan, usapang flood control. Panoorin ho natin kung ano yung mga kaganapan na yan sa Senado. Eto ho, si Senator Joel Villanueva. Actually, siya rin ho ang tumayo kaugnay doon sa mga palpak na flood control noong lumubog ho dyan sa Bulacan noong mga nakaraang buwan. Isa din ho siya sa mga bumatikos dito sa administrasyon na to. Ang banat ho niya nung mga panahon na yon, palpak ang pagtugon ng national government kaugnay nga ho doon sa nagdaang bagyo na yon na kung saan lumubog ang malaking bahagi ng Bulacan. Ito, panoorin ho natin to mga kababayan.
Water
Yun.
infrastructure.
water
Yung sa
sector, okay,
74, opo.
74.
And 13
Game,
of this,
game.
13 lang yung sa water resources projects, if I'm not mistaken. And have indications that they are used for flood control and mitigation. If I'm correct, Mr. President, please correct me if I'm wrong. That's correct, right? 13 of these are tagged as water resources. Karamihan po sa mga ito, Mr. President, may connection sa flood mitigation o flood control. May we know, Mr. President, alin sa mga proyektong ito ang may iba pang gamit, kagaya po ng irigasyon, kuryente, industrial at iba pa, Mr. President, mula po dito sa 13 water resources projects?
Yeah.
Irrigation, power, industrial.
Actually, the one in Iloilo, always
Halur.
yeah, the great province of Iloilo. Multi-purpose po yan, yung dam nila.
Nautusan po ako ng principal. Hingi daw lang po ako ng report at bigyan ko ng kopya ang bawat isa. So, if that
Okay.
is possible.
Of course, of course. So yun nga, yung example nga doon, yung dam doon, for irrigation, for power, di ba? So, at saka water supply for households.
Sige po, para mas mapadali. Hintayin na lang po namin, Mr. President. Ayan po yung ang gusto ko sana nating malaman, Mr. President, from this list na 13, ilan po dito yung mayroong component ng may iba pang gamit gaya po ng irigasyon, kuryente, industrial at iba pa mula po dito sa 13 na ito. And I will give a copy to our principal, Senator Villar.
Thank you.
Siguro yun na lang po yung ihintayin ko po, no? Yung ilan dito sa mga proyekto yung may iba pa pong gamit. One last thing, Mr. President, gusto kong itanong, Mr. President, kasi pinag-usapan po natin yung flood foreign assisted projects. Isa-isa ko yung mga saro nitong mga nakaraang araw. Parang 800 pages po yun, Mr. President. At napag-alaman ko po, for example, ito po sa flood mitigation related FAPs na pinondohan under the unprogrammed funds. Gusto natin malaman ano yung details nitong mga foreign assisted projects that have been allotted additional funds under the latest Special Allotment Release Order or SARO for DPWH. Kasi if I may show you a slide, Mr. President, ito po yung narilisan ng unprogrammed funds, no, dito sa ating mga flood foreign assisted projects. So makita po natin diyan, for example, nung June 6, yung SARO
Para doon sa mga individual na kung saan tinutukoy na itong si Vice President Sara Duterte na sila daw di umano ang may control sa budget na sambayan ng Pilipino. Panoorin nyo ang mga sasabihin dito nitong si Senator Joel Villanueva.
BMBA 24004246. Yan po, June 6 of 2024. Nakalagay po dyan, to cover the first and second quarter GOP counterpart requirements of the Panay Guimaras Negros Island Bridges project. Yung SARO BMBA 24001484 as of September 17, 2024, 201 million. Kinover po niya yung loan proceeds requirement for the implementation of the Metro Manila Bridges Project, ADB loan po ito. At yung September 17, 2024, na nagkakalagang 153.436 million, SARO number BMBA 24001480 ay kino-cover naman po nito yung third and fourth quarter na GOP counterpart requirements ng Panay Island Bridges Project. Ito pong dalawa na nasa itaas at nasa ibaba, 10 billion po at 11 billion. Pero
grabe
dito po,
naman yan, 10
wala
billion.
Ang nakalagay lang po to cover the first and second quarter counterpart requirements of various foreign assisted projects. Saan po ito, Mr. President? At ano yung description to? Bakit wala po dito, Mr. President?
That's a very good question. Even I'm curious. Let me wait for the explanation of the DBM.
Sorry.
Nakuha niyo yung SARO number, di submit niyo.
Can we just submit that also to the here?
Yeah, Mr. President, I don't mind.
Sa tingin ho natin, maraming mga mabubulgar dito sa ano na to, sa budget deliberation sa Senado. Marami hong mabubulgar dito na hindi ikakatutuwa netong si ano pangalan to? Netong si Saldico at netong si Tambaloslos. For sure.
Na mai-submit, Mr. President. But may we just be enlightened whether or not these funds that were released under unprogrammed funds ay parte ng foreign assisted project na tumutukoy sa problema natin sa pagbaha. Ito'y parte ng flood control project, Mr. President.
Mr. President, what I have initially here, for example, is the Davao Bypass Construction Package, JICA PH273. Meron din ditong Philippines-Korea Project Preparation, output of roads and bridges, Dalton Pass Alignment, JICA. So, ito lahat yung...
But it's not flood control, Mr. President. I just wanted to focus on
may
the flood
floodway
control
bridges construction.
Because, Mr. President, the premise of this question lies on the fact that the flood control programs, the big ticket items, were placed under unprogrammed. Yun yung basis nitong question na ito, Mr. President. That's why we are wanting na to see itong breakdown. But it's okay, Mr. President. I will wait for it as a lot of our colleagues are also interested in looking for this list. And I will no longer belabor the question, Mr. President. I will just wait for the submission, Mr. President, to find out yung tinatanong natin, yung details ng tinatanong po natin. And
Meron mga integrated disaster risk reduction adaptations na kasama may mga water projects. But
ma'am,
again,
is it part of the 10 billion or the 11 billion?
actually, it's part of a bigger pie. So I think that DBM
So it's
has to-
more than the
Yeah,
the figures that we are
I
showing.
think, I don't think we are directly answering your question, to be honest. And I think this is something that DBM has to clarify because the
Naku.
total 11 billion and 10 billion, parang hindi ko nakikita dito exactly. So I don't know if they're lumped together.
That's the reason, Mr. President.
Oo.
That's the reason why I flash on screen the number of SARO, Mr. President.
Meron ditong 11,709. Yan ba yun? Hindi iba rin eh.
Mhm.
So,
Anyway, Mr. President, we'll wait for...
Nasaan ba DBM? Bakit di pagpaliwanagin? Di ba? Bakit kayo nagtatanungan dyan? Kung di nyo alam pareho, di isa lang yung DBM, gisahin dyan, di ba?
For the list, Mr. President, we're willing to wait. And again, the premise of this representation sa question is based on the fact that big ticket items that were supposed to address the problem of flooding in the country were placed under unprogrammed, Mr. President. So I hope that we can do something about it kasi mahirap umuwi ng Bulacan tuwing umuulan at bumabaha. At tingin ko yung mga kababayan natin ayaw na po ng relief goods, Mr. President. Ang gusto nila talaga solusyon.
Open yung
Kaya,
Correct.
salamat po, Mr. President. That would be my last question. And I'd like to thank our distinguished colleague, the Chairperson of the Senate Committee on Finance, for patiently answering these representations questions. Maraming salamat din po. Thank you.
Abangan ho natin yung mga susunod na kaganapan dito sa bahagi ng video na to. Punta naman ho tayo dito kay Senator Manga, Senator Imee Marcos. Ito ho mga kababayan.
Thank you, Senator Villanueva. Thank you, Senator Grace. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, next to interpolate would be Senator Imee Marcos.
Senator Imee Marcos, super
Tingnan
ate
natin
recognized.
kung anong banat nitong si Senator Imee Marcos.
Ay, konsumisyon. Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President, and the good chairwoman of the Finance Committee of the Senate. My first query would be that, given that inflation for October was recorded at 2.3, well within the desired 2.4 target band of the BSP, rice inflation nevertheless accelerated from 5.7 to 9.6 the previous month, despite the implementation of the lower rice tariffs from 35 to 15% August 2024. So, when will the NEDA board conduct its review of the rice tariff under the comprehensive tariff program for 2024 to 2028? Given that clearly,
Hindi naman ho kasi yung ano na yan, yung pagbaba sa taripa ng pag-i-import ng mga agricultural product, hindi naman ho talaga para sa taong bayan yan. Kaya ho inimplementa yan, Senator Imee, baka hindi siya sa bagay, sino ba na, hindi mo na, diba? Sa bagay, paano mo nga naman malalaman hindi ka naman imbitado sa mga galaan ng iyong kapatid, di ba? Ban ka sa Malacanang, di ba? Ito ako na magsasabi sa iyo, kaya binabaan ng taripa sa mga agricultural product para ho yung mga kaibigang mga importer ng inyong pamilya, happy-happy ho sila. Ngayon kung tinatanong nyo kung kailangan reviewin yung polisiya na yan, hindi ho nila re-reviewin yan kasi mas mahalaga ho ang kapakanan ng mga importer na kaibigan ng inyong mga pamilya kaysa sa ating mga magsasaka. Kasi direkta hong natamaan dyan sa na yan, pagbaba ng taripa sa mga pag-import ng mga agricultural product. Hindi naman ho yung mga consumer. Yung mga consumer nga, imbis na makabili, imbis na bumaba yung presyo dahil nga marami na ini-import sa murang taripa, kumbaga mababa yung tax. Dapat kung bibili na yung ating mga kababayan, mas mura. Kaso, yun hong ini-import na mga kaibigan nitong mga walang ya dyan sa Malacanang, imbis na babaan nila ang presyo dahil mura ho nilang nabili at mababa ang taripa dahil sa ibang bansa nabili yan, ang ginagawa ho nila, isinasabay ho nila sa presyo sa merkado sa Pilipinas. Ganun ho sila katitindi, di ba? In-import nila ng murang taripa at ibebenta nila ng nakasabay sa presyo sa Pilipinas. Hindi ikaw naman, Senator, palibhasa sa Imee, hindi ho kayo imbitado sa mga galaan dyan sa Malacanang. Kaya hindi nyo alam kung ano yung mga kaganapan dyan. Buti pa kami, alam namin.
the rice inflation, headline inflation continues at record pace. We're already at 15%. Ibabagsak pa natin sa zero po.
So, sa mga kababayan natin magtataka ba't naka-headband tayo? Kasi umaano na ho sa mata yung buhok natin, no? Sagabal na ho. Minsan pagkaganyan, napapaganyan tayo, di natin makita na maayos yung binabasa natin.
Okay. They are going to submit to the President within the end of the month the report on the effects of the EO and a recommendation.
Wag mong gawin. Pagka yan, tinanggap ni Senator Imee Marcos yung explanation na yan ng inihinga niya ng explanation kung inassess na nila yung na yan, yung polisiya na yan. Pagka yan, hindi diyan sa budget deliberation, hindi diyan pinag-usapan. Maglulukuhan na lang mo tayo dyan.
Therein.
Okay, we look forward to that. In the meantime, perhaps our economists can explain why rice inflation accelerated instead of decelerated in the previous month. Why so?
Okay lang sana kung talagang totoo yung ginagawa mo. Siyempre, malapit sa bitukan ng sambayanan niya. Kanin yan bigas yan Siyempre, kailangan sausawan yan ni Senator Imee Marcos. Pero, lang ho yan, kumbaga, for show lang yan. Pero wag ko kayo magpabula, wag niyo kong iboto yung alin na yan. Wala ko kayo mapapala dyan. Kung anong mga kapalpakan na ginagawa ng kanyang kapatid na hindi ho niya mapuna-puna, yan ho ba pagpuna yan? Mas okay nang di kayo nagsasalita basta rinirekta nyo na yung kapatid nyong bangag.
We were promised the opposite.
Yun nga ho ang dahilan kung bakit binabaan ng taripa dyan sa mga dyan sa mga bigas-bigas na yan. Para mag-import ng maramihan sa mababang taripa, mababa yung tax, mabenta ng mura. Ang ginawa ho ng mga kaibigang importer ng administrasyon, isinabay ho nila sa presyo ng merkado. Ang dudugas na, tatakaw sa pera. Papakamot ka na lang no? Pagklase talaga. Oh my goodness.
Tumataas talaga hanggang mag-holidays.
Wala na po tayong ibabagsak. Nasa 15% na lang po. Kung yan lang ang tanging solusyon natin, mukhang hindi uubre.
Mr. President.
Putan mo kasi yung kapatid mo. Ba't mo pinapahirapan yung sarili mo, Madam Imee? Manang, putan mo si kapatid mo, sabihin mo, Brad, Tol, problema to. Ano nang mangyayari? Di ba nangako kayo na bababa ang presyo ng bigas pagka binabaan ng presyo ang taripa sa mga ini-import na agricultural goods? Imbis na bumaba, lalong tumaas. Ano ba nangyayari? Sino bang nakinabang diyan sa rice tarification na 'yan? Pagbaba ng buwis diyan sa bigas. Yun ho bang sambayan ng Pilipino, yung mga kaibigan yung mga importer? O sa bagay, o baka ang gustong mangyari nitong administrasyon na to, hindi ho babaan ng presyo. Bagkos mabawasan yung mga smuggler. Hindi na ho nila kailangan mag-smuggle, di ba? Pwede na ho silang sumabay sa merkado kasi mababa ang importation, mataas nila ibibenta. Ganun kawalang yan.
President,
Diba, Tinde?
supposedly last October, last year,
Oo.
there was actually a
Galing
price cap
eh.
imposed by the
That's
government.
correct, which also didn't work.
But it was lower than it is now. I mean, the inflation.
Yes, as a result, however, we all know that there was no rice available and traders were holding on to their warehouse supply and all sorts of artificial shortages were occurring throughout the country.
Well, according to the NEDA secretary, the inflation right now is just a blip, and for the rice in particular, and they expect it
Promise
to go
ka?
lower.
It's almost double po.
Siya
It's a-
promise
Kapitbahay
daw.
ko po yan sa Batak, Ilocos Norte.
Because October 2022.
It's a major
Inutile
blip
talaga
po, halos doble.
Kasi
Kasi 5% namamayagpag sa 9.6.
October 23 daw, sobrang bagsak yung presyo ng rice dahil sa price cap. Ano ito last year?
Parang hindi yata.
So base effect daw.
Okay, but I don't think that's quite the truth. In the meantime, given that we can't seem to look forward to a better rice prices, nor can we be assured that there are any other solutions aside from artificially set price ceilings and very little wiggle room in 15% tariff rates. The other issue is how much is the projected tariff loss for the implementation of the lower rice tariff?
Huh.
I think the BOC has released estimates for the revenue loss, and I'd like to hear what those rates are assumed to be. Kasi maliban sa bumagsak na nga yung taripa,
Tumaas pa
ang
yung presyo.
problema, tumaas pa rin ang inflation, at sa kabila nun, lugi pa tayo, bagsak din ang koleksyon. Kaya si Secretary Recto, hindi matutuwa niyan. Kita natin, ang laki-laki ng binagsak o babagsak ng
Di na bumaba presyo, lalong tumaas ang presyo, nabawasan yung koleksyon ng taripa ng ating bansa, lugi na yung gobyerno. Nakinabang lang ho talaga yung mga kaibigan nila. Walang benepisyo sa sambayan ng Pilipino, nakinabang lang yung mga smuggler nilang mga kaibigan. Hindi na ho sila magtatago-tago, rektang import na kasi ang baba ng taripa.
ating koleksyon ayon sa ating BOC. Magkano kaya ang revenue loss natin?
Magkano?
Anticipated under the new regime of 15%?
Yan. Magkano?
Nasa 16 plus na eh.
Grabe, laki nun ha.
Ang nabasa ko po sa dyaryo, mula sa 28.477 billion, ang revenue loss natin, 16.344 billion,
My goodness!
nasa 12.103 billion.
Grabe naman yan! Sa bagay, yung mga kaibigan ho ninyo ng pamilya nyo, ng mga importer, baka nagbibigay ho sila ng taripa dito kay Marcos Jr. doon sila nagbabayad ng taripa sa Malacanang.
Menos pa sa kalahati ito, mukhang 1/3 na lang matitira. Tama ba to?
Kawawa sa bayan ng Pilipino
Di wala na
dito sa
tayong
bangag na to.
pamumudlot sa ating mga magsasaka. Di na nga nila mabenta, wala pa silang maaasahang tulong.
Alam mo kasi natin, yung portion dyan sa taripa na yan, na paggaling yung taripa doon sa in-import na mga agricultural goods, gagamitin yan para sa mga magsasaka natin, pambili ng abono o pag-education o advance yung paano magtanim tong ating mga magsasaka, yung portion ng mga taripa na yan. Pero ang nangyayari ho mga kababayan, binawasan na taripa, wala nang tulong sa mga magsasaka, lalo pang tumaas ang bigas. Palakpakan ho natin ang administrasyon ko.
So we lose about 20 billion, 10 billion for the first 6 months, 9 billion for the first 6 months.
9B, first
Yeah.
6 months,
For a year, it's about 20 billion.
20 billion. It's getting bigger and bigger po. Nag-umpisa tayo sa 15B, nasa 16 and a half nung nakaraan. Ngayon na 20 billion na. Palaki ng palaki po to. So, ang balita ko, nangako naman si Secretary Recto na ipapasok sa GAA at yung kakulangan, siya na ang magpupuno. Tama po ba? saan kukunin yan? Kasi parang palipat-lipat lang tayo ng pera nito. So, is the consideration therefore, hindi umuubra yung rice tariff reduction. Pag tuloy-tuloy pa to at hindi bumabagsak ang presyo ng bigas, ang ibig sabihin ba yung ating economic managers ay itataas na naman ang taripa sa 35% to cover the projected revenue loss? Kasi hindi naman pwedeng gaan ng gaay ang pupuno sa 20 billion na kulang.
What presents the prices to put down the price manipulation. Nevertheless, part of the plan is to talk to the traders. Sure that they pass on the any.
Well, I guess the major plan is really to talk to the traders to make sure that they pass on the benefits.
Ang mahirap po, alam na alam naman ng mga taga-Vietnam, taga-India, at sa kung saan-saan na nangangailangan tayo ng bigas. Kaya nagtataas din sila ng presyo. Sinasamantala tayo. Nakikita natin, pinapayaman natin yung mga magsasaka sa ibang bansa, samantalang kinakawawa yung magsasakang Pilipino. Tama po ba to? Hindi ba ikukonsidera ng ating mga economic managers na itaas na muli sa 35% at mapuno yung projected revenue loss?
Part of the plan is what the big things to come down.
Part of the plan is also to encourage and to increase more production.
Parang hindi naman realidad yan. Nakita naman natin sunod-sunod ng bagyo, hindi pa tapos yung alphabet po, marami pang letra. At tigit sa lahat, nakita natin ang presyo ng abono, ang presyo ng crudo, nagsisitaasan, double whammy po. Palagay ko, kinakailangan siguro mag-isip tayo kung ano pa yung plano.
Wow.
Kasi itong mga planong to, itong artificial price ceilings, pagkatapos itong mga taripa na wala nang ibababa, parang hindi nagwo-work. Kailangan siguro mag-isip pa. So, yun lang yung tanong ko. Sana may magandang balita, pero wala pa akong naririnig. In the meantime, can we be updated on the computed cash balance of the National Treasury? Can you verify that we ended, in fact, the year 2023 with a balance of 787.1 billion? Tama ba yung aking numero? Oh, I think you're adjusting for borrowing. So are we reading the same numbers po? Nakaka-nervous po to. Hindi natin alam kung magkano yung pera natin.
Naku.
Kinakabahan ako, ba't natatagalan? Dapat simpleng-simpleng tanong yun.
As
As of
About
end
700.
2023.
Yeah, more or less you are correct, Mr. Chair, about 700
Yes,
plus billion.
787.1 billion with a net change in cash position of 505.8 billion brought about by a borrowing of 1.875 trillion against the deficit of 970.2 billion. Is it safe to assume that the Treasury still has at least 1.2 trillion to fund the rest of 2024? Parang tama yun, di ba? Arithmetic lang po. So, we have
have
at
enough.
least 1.2 trillion. Tama ba yung nabasa ko sa dyaryo? Press release po ninyo to. If it is a press release of Secretary Recto, it's infallible.
Naku.
It's ex cathedra.
So in short, we can pay for our obligations for 2024, Mr. Chair.
So, is there already a projected cash balance for the end of this year, 2024? The projected cash balance of the National Treasury at the end of this year, since we're already right smack in the last quarter, siguro naman may projected cash balance na tayo at this point.
what the previous finance secretary says in open session, we can provide you the numbers privately.
Privately. So it will be an executive session or will be provided at a later juncture. It's just projected, hindi naman siya absolute.
We will have a positive cash balance.
We can
Okay.
submit that to you,
Yes, so
Mr. President.
that being the case, may I proceed to another concern? The Bangko Sentral of Anang Pilipinas sold 24.95 tons of gold on the first quarter, the first half of this year,
Naku.
according to the World Gold Council. Can we be updated on the total net sales of gold for this year? Given that we have enough money to fund our expenses, did the BSP sell more gold even after the 25 tons almost in the first half?
Nabili din natin.
How much gold have you actually sold?
Wait, first we buying. So far the total
Yes, I'm,
as
is this
of
the,
July 2024 lang to, di ba? Ano to? 16 ano? Billion?
abala ang marami po sa atin, sa ating mga mamayan, pati ating mga bankero, pagkat ang ibang bansa bumibili ng ginto, bakit daw tayo biglang nagbabagsak at nagbebenta ng ginto? Eh samantalang sinabi po ninyo, sapat naman ang ating pera, bakit ba tayo nagbebenta ng katakot-takot?
16. 15 billion. 16 billion. Ano? 16 billion. 15 billion, 733 million, 495,000. Okay. Tapos, yan yung binili natin. Oo. So far, Mr. Chair, for July 2024, 16 billion, 733 yung binili natin worth of gold. Ngayon, magkano yung binenta natin?
Yes, we're aware Republic Act 7076 mandates all small miners to sell their gold first to the BSP. That's established by law. So we are saying that in terms of value, 16 billion was bought mid-year. In terms of weight, how much weight, how many tons of gold did we buy from local small and other local miners?
In terms of weight daw. Yung weight. Weight nitong 16 billion. Anong weight niya?
Naku naman, ano namang klaseng ano yan?
Magkano ba yung price ng gold ngayon? Tapos i-divide na lang
Naku.
per kilo. Per ounce.
Sige po, baka naman kailangan hanapin. Total, nasagot na rin in terms of value, nasa 16 billion. Later on, you can probably tell us in terms of weight. Ano?
Okay, we're computing that based on the amount released so
Tama.
far.
Sige po, but there's also been a question about the price at which we are buying gold. Marami rin nagtatanong dyan.
2,000 something per ounce? Per
Well, that's the world rate. The US dollar rate is at 2,754.27.
But we need to ask how much did we
But how
spend?
much did we buy from the local miners? Can we go back to the first question? How much did we sell? What's our total net sales for this year so far? Apparently, we sold 24.95 tons of gold in the first half.
Pa tayo nun?
Have we been selling since?
Benta? Yung magkano yung nabenta natin? Wala.
Hindi ko sure. Kaya nga eh. Napakaliit po nung ating sales. Kung tutuusin, binili lang natin 16 billion, pero yung binenta natin nasa 25 tons. Parang
Grabe.
napakalaki naman yata. Can we be enlightened? Perhaps if you don't have the data on hand, maybe at least request that it be submitted shortly.
Mr. President, it could also be a part of the reserve strategy of the central bank. So maraming ang binili na para sa reserve. But we will get a definitive answer.
That would appear to be the opposite. Di ba baliktad yun? Kung nagre-reserve ka, nag-iipon ka, hindi ka nagbebenta. Can we
Correct.
be enlightened on the rationale
Para
of the
makakuha ng
BSP?
cash reserve.
Selling
na
its
binibenta
old
nila.
holdings. Nagbebenta para sa cash reserve. Pero kasasabi
Yan ang dahilan, Senator Grace po, bakit hindi ho kayo naging presidente? Anong klaseng strategy yun? Nag-i-impok ka nga, tapos ikaw magbigla ka magbibenta. Anong klaseng kabal ba?
lang, meron tayong 1.2 trillion to fund the rest of 2024.
Iba naman kasi, hindi naman galing sa central bank yung funding natin for the
Tama.
So maybe it's just central bank.
Just look at the gross international reserves today is $112 billion, highest ever.
And because of that, maybe one of the contributing factors is that our dollar reserve is 112 billion US dollars, which is the highest ever.
Yes, but the question also arises, and it has been asked not only here in the Philippines but elsewhere, what's the overall effect of the sale of gold on our gross international reserves?
Well-
Sa BSP, yung GIR natin, syempre, babagsak din yan, ano?
Tumaas actually. Our dollar reserves increased.
The dollar reserves increased, pero yung overall, yung gross reserve, including everything we have.
They are still in
9% of our GIR is still in gold.
Still in gold.
Oo.
So, yes, but this is quite a large amount. This is largest amount that we've heard in the past several years. Assuming that the gold was therefore converted to US dollars, where were the proceeds of the gold sales invested? Do we expect those assets to outperform gold, which has seen stunning prices this year?
Correct.
Actually, Mr. President, the reason why also part of the reserves were sold is because of the high demand and price of gold. Now, instead of holding on to it, when you also forecast that, or when you analyze that it's a high number or it's in demand, that's the time actually you also sell. But you keep a certain percentage for reserves. So the particulars of which all of your questions,
Perhaps you
Mr.
can
President,
submit them at a
will be
certain-
submitted.
Okay. We also would like to know what's the average price of the total gold sales of BSP. Is it higher than the current price of gold at 2,754.27 per troy ounce, which I believe is a record amount. So I doubt that, in fact, we sold at this exceedingly high amount. So our GIR could arguably been higher if we held on to the gold instead of selling it from the beginning of the year onwards.
Syempre, of course, you want to sell it when the price is high. Di ba, Mr. President?
But
Okay,
it
now,
would have been wiser if we had held on to it kasi pataas ng pataas,
Correct.
hindi
yeah,
po.
but
Pataas
that's
ng
also
pataas.
a risk you take, di ba? Parang you also try to see
Teka lang, madam.
your appetite for
Yung
risk,
ibang
di ba?
mga
You
bansa,
see that
mataas na-
maybe you already have a threshold of this much.
Te-
Anyway, bumawi na tayo ng ganito. We can sell here. But let's also
Ba't
keep,
ayaw mag-post?
because in the future, we still have the 9%. We can
Ayaw
still
magpapigil.
sell that eventually.
Ganun
I
yan
mean,
eh.
while we are also garnering more reserves, yung 9% na yun, ang pwede naman pag all-time high pa rin ng gold. Pero I share again, as I mentioned to our other colleagues, I share also your curiosity, and I would like to know how much the central bank sells per ounce gold and when. So we can compare to the market price. Baka naman sabihin nilang impressive 2,700 per ounce. Yun pala, at the time they sold it, it was worth so much more or so much less. So please submit that to us.
Yes,
And where did you
and
put the
also-
proceeds
Yes.
of those?
And perhaps also, most
Triple A bonds of Senator.
Most importantly, the rationale for doing so, given that so many countries are in fact in a mad rush to acquire gold. And here we are unloading our own gold. So it's a little peculiar. The timing seems to be different. I will admit, in fact, that everyone has a different investment strategy. But having said that, why are we so much against the crowd? In any case, we'll await your information and proceed to what several think tanks have advised, that a viable option would be to join the Philippines to join the BRICS alliance. Given that new members from ASEAN have already been designated as partner states. So I just wanted to hear what our economic manager's opinion is with regards to this.
Nako.
Is there a Philippine plan to
Nako.
apply following the lead of our neighbors?
Ito na ho, BRICS na.
Not at the
Sasali
moment,
tayo,
Mr.
hindi.
President. We're
Ang hirap po kasi dyan, mga kababayan, ang talagang ano ng BRICS na yan, China at saka Russia. Itong administrasyon na to galit na galit sa China. Ayaw hong makinabang sa biyayang dala ng nitong ano na to, nitong binuong alyansa nitong China at Russia. So tingin niyo ba sa ganitong inaasal ng administrasyon na to, kahit na magpumilit itong si Marcos Jr. na sumali diyan sa BRICS na yan, isasali ho kaya siya? Baka papasok pa lang siya tinataboy na ho siya ng mga miyembro ng ng BRICS kasi di ano ho siya, aso ho siya ng Amerika eh. Hindi pwede doon yung mga aso ng Amerika, dapat doon may yagba ka. Di pwede yung mga ano doon sa bagay, iba na rin ho pala presidente ngayon, no? Dapat, palakpakan tayo, tapos na gera. Iba naman yan. Ayun na nga mga kababayan, dito na natatapusin ang ating reaction video Biglang huminto itong ating video. Maraming salamat mag-ingat kayo lahat. Ituloy ho natin itong usaping BRICS na to sa ating susunod na video. Mag-ingat kayo lahat, mahalin natin ng Pilipinas.